Five Nights at Freddy's timeline. Everyone has a different opinion on where everything goes. There are way too many questions in the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. What year does such a location take place? How many games do we for sure play as Michael Afton? And why does William Afton always come back? Seriously, this dude got spring-locked, died in 2 fires, and he's still here. Anyway, today, whether you're an OG fan or just went to see the movie and understood absolutely nothing, we're gonna break down everything from the movie, games, books, into one hopefully close to accurate timeline. Also, this is my theory on the timeline, so it may not be accurate one, but I'm hoping it's close. One random day, maybe sometime in the 1970s, two men meet called William Afton and Henry Emily and decide to open a family diner. To be specific, Fredbear's family diner. In this diner were two animatronics, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. But they weren't just any animatronics, they were spring-lock suits. Basically, spring-lock suits were made to be costume and animatronic. Inside the suits are spring locks, and if you activate them, they would turn into animatronic. And when deactivated, they would change to suit mode. But they weren't the best technology, so if a human was wearing the suits, the spring locks could activate from any sudden movements or water/moisture. Keep that in mind, it'll be important later. Beside that restaurant was Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It featured Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Anyway, let's explain a little about our business owners here. William Afton had a wife, Mrs. Afton, and 3 kids. His eldest son being Michael, his middle child being Elizabeth, and his youngest son being Crying Child. We don't have a confirmed name, so this is what we have to deal with. I know, annoying. Henry Emily, on the other hand, had a daughter named Charlotte Emily. Back to Fredbear's. William and Henry both built their animatronics on their own. William was more of an ideas and business guy, and Henry was the builder of the animatronics. William loved watching his creations come to life. He sat there watching Henry make his ideas. The one William loved most was Spring Bonnie, which is why he always insisted on wearing it whenever it was in suit mode. Henry didn't really care, so he was always in the Fredbear suit. William had picked up some things on how building animatronics works, so he was pretty knowledgeable on it by the time they were finished. Since William was always so busy, Michael would always have to look after his younger brother because Elizabeth always likes watching her dad, William, work. So whenever he was working, she was never in the house. Michael always liked to play pranks on his brother and scare him with his Foxy mask. He would always jump out from behind the TV, under the bed, everywhere. William Afton was always worried about his youngest son because he would get scared of everything. So he made his son a Fredbear plush with a built-in walkie-talkie to remind him, tomorrow is another day. But William Afton was always fascinated by science. He always dreamed of doing his own experiments. So while thinking of his weeping son, he got an idea, a bright idea in his mind. He was going to do an experiment on ongoing fear in children, and he chose Crying Child for the job. He obviously wasn't going to tell his son about it, so he built an underground bunker underneath his home. He installed cameras all around his son's bedroom. Then he got to work on some new animatronics. He used his knowledge from watching Henry work on Fredbear and Spring Bonnie to make animatronics. They were nightmarish but harmless versions of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. They barely looked like monsters at all though. Once he set them up in his son's room, he used hallucination gas to make them look more harmful and scary to a child's mind. He used the vent in his son's room to set loose the gas at 12 a.m. every night. He would sit in his underground office and examine his son. Then at 6 a.m. he would turn off the hallucination gas. Crying Child was getting more afraid of the animatronics every day. He was always so scared to go near them. His brother noticed and had a bright idea for a prank. On the day of Crying Child's birthday, Michael and his 3 friends put on their Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy masks and went to torment his brother. Then Michael got the bright idea to put his brother in Fredbear's mouth. While he was crying, and what I mentioned earlier, moisture can set the spring locks off, crushing a person. So that's what happened. Michael was mortified. He couldn't believe what he had just done. William, on the other hand, was furious with his son. His restaurant had shut down because of his son's stupid prank. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was the only one that remained, so he decided to put Michael through those same experiments. Though for Michael, he wasn't seeing what his brother was seeing. 2 nights in a row, he saw different versions of a nightmarish Fredbear. He could never get it out of his mind. Ever. While doing that, he was also furious at Henry. He was the one that created the animatronic that took his son from him. One night, while William had been driving home, he was thinking about all of this. He was blind with rage. While he was driving past Freddy Fazbear Pizza, he saw Henry's daughter, Charlotte, locked out. Then he had the idea for revenge. He got out of his car and took Charlotte's life. But this was only the beginning. got home, he still felt angry. He decided to take it out on Michael. When he got home, his wife was slumped on the couch, still depressed about her youngest son. She told William to leave Michael alone since he'd had a rough day, but William didn't listen. He went to Michael's room and found it locked. He yelled at Michael to open the door, but it didn't open. He decided to go around the house to the window and crawl through to give his son a piece of his mind. When he got through, he found the window broken and some footsteps. He'll be sorry when he gets back, he thinks. Meanwhile, Michael was in a dirt field. Fredbear told him to follow him through this window and let him here, or that's what he thought. It was still 1983. William Afton was planning a very horrible plan. He was going to go on a killing spree. He was blinded by grief for his son. After those experiments on both his sons, he was starting to go insane. He went to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the last restaurant after Fredbear's family diner, and lured kids to a back room. His first was a girl named Susie. He told her that someone ran over her dog in front of his house and that he had him in the back room of the restaurant, but she did not come back. The next was Fritz. He told him that he had several hostages at his house and that he needed to help him. The next was Gabriel. He told him that he needed help with his homework. Of course, he didn't even have any homework. The next was Jeremy. He told him that his house was on fire. The last one was Cassidy. Cassidy literally just got kidnapped after the place shut down. After an investigation at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, they tried to arrest William because all the evidence pointed to him, but they couldn't since they hadn't found the dead kids, so he walked away, a free man. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza did end up shutting down though, due to health violations. But William later noticed that the animatronics weren't acting like robots. They felt like they were alive somehow, but he wanted to experiment on it. He went to his underground bunker and got to work. He had an amazing idea. After the closing of his restaurant, him and Henry still had the rights to the characters. Henry opened a restaurant called Chica's Party World with 4 characters: Ned Bear, Mr. Hippo, Pigpatch, Orville, and Happy Frog, and the star singer Chica. William didn't want any part of this so he created his own restaurant, Circus Baby's Pizza World. It consisted of Circus Baby, Ballora, Funtime Freddy, and Funtime Foxy. He also made 2 other companies, Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental, where you could rent out any of these 4 animatronics for parties, and Afton Robotics. These animatronics weren't made only for entertaining though. 2 of these animatronics, Circus Baby and Funtime Freddy, were made with a special feature. They were designed to lure and capture children that were alone with the animatronics. He thought this would almost be like the MCI and he could study them. But something happened on the first day of opening. He had forbidden his daughter to go anywhere near Circus Baby because she was way too interested in her. One day she snuck into Circus Baby's room and, like the programming was written, snatched up his daughter, taking her life. William Afton closed the restaurant immediately, but something was wrong. Circus Baby's eyes had originally been blue. Now they were a bright emerald green, just like his daughter. He knew his daughter was in there, but he wanted it that way. He was reading the newspaper and found out Henry had opened another restaurant. It was a new and improved version of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. In 1987, William ordered his son Michael to go work as a security guard. Michael went to work there under the fake name Fritz Smith, which his dad had come up with for him. He didn't really know why he was there. Meanwhile, William would use this opportunity to sneak in and see if he could find the old animatronics from the first location, and he succeeded. He took apart the suits, taking out all the metal so he could experiment on it, but all the ghosts of the MCI children suddenly started surrounding him. He found his old Spring Bonnie suit. He got in to show he was the stronger one for some odd reason, but the suit was almost a decade old. The room was dripping with water, and suddenly the spring lock started failing. After a while, Michael was starting to get worried. His dad hadn't come home yet. His dad, William, had told him to go into his secret bunker and free the soul of Michael's sister, Elizabeth. He went into an elevator and was suddenly in his dad's underground bunker. He found Hand Unit and turned it on. Suddenly, the elevator started going down. Hand Unit started talking, giving instructions. But by the second night, there was another voice coming out of Hand Unit. It was a female voice, started giving him instruction on how to survive, but he wanted some answers about this, so he kept coming back down. By the 5th night, he finally meets her. The voice was Circus Baby, aka Elizabeth Afton. She gave him some instruction and led him into the scooping room. Apparently, they wanted to escape the underground bunker, so they used Michael as a human skin suit. They used him for a couple of days, then came out of his mouth into his sewer. But Michael did not die. He was somehow alive. He was furious at his dad. He decided to find Henry and put a stop to it all. Michael and Henry had started work together. While Henry was busy planning for something big, Michael worked as the security guard at Freddy's locations to try and find his dad. He went under a fake name as Mike Schmidt, Mike for a shorter version of his name, and then used Henry's last name, Schmidt. His first attempt went badly and he got fired for tampering with animatronics to try and find a clue as to where his dad is, general unprofessionalism, and odor. Things stayed low for a while Henry was trying to make out their first plan to end this all. When they heard of a new horror attraction called Fazbear's Fright, Henry decided it was his turn now, so he went and got hired as a security guard there. Apparently, they had been searching the old locations for any old animatronics to use, and they found one. It was William Afton 30 years later, in the rotten Spring Bonnie suit. Henry decided to burn the whole place down and see if that worked, but it didn't. William was still there. Since Henry couldn't open his restaurants anymore, he told Michael to ask Fazbear Entertainment to manage his own location, and they happily agreed. It was called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. While Michael worked to keep it going, Henry was starting with their plan. They were going to lure the old animatronics from the old locations with the souls in them, then burn the whole place to the ground. He built a special device for his dead daughter, though. It was called LEFTE. Lure, encapsulate, fuse, transport, and extract, aka Lefty. He designed it to lure and capture the puppet which his daughter possessed. They also ended up luring William Afton, who was now Scrap Trap, Circus Baby, who was now Scrap Baby, and Molten Freddy, which had all the 5 dead kids' souls in it: Gabriel, Jeremy, Susie, Fritz, and Cassidy. Once they were ready, they burned the whole place to the ground, with Scrap Trap, Scrap Baby, Molten Freddy, Lefty, Henry, and Michael in it. William thought he was dead, but he was not. He woke in an office. He didn't know why he was here, but soon learned from all the times he had died here and came back to life. The vengeful spirit Cassidy kept his soul here, like his own personal hell, to die again and again. But William Afton always comes back and somehow found a way to take his consciousness and put it into a digital world. He called himself Glitch Trap. He also figured out how to transfer his digital consciousness to another person. He just had to wait for the right time. Fazbear Entertainment has decided to make a VR headset game. They thought this would erase all the bad things of their past. This is where Vanessa comes in. She's been hired as a beta tester for the new game. While she's beta testing, she finds out some odd things. She finds hidden tapes in the game. She collects them all, but as she collects them, this rabbit keeps getting close to her, waving. She brushes it off as something a part of the game. The first tape explained that there's some kind of malicious code in the game.
This game has some kind of malicious code in it that we haven't been able to fully contain or even understand, for that matter.
In the second tape, she explains that there's this weird character that isn't supposed to be there. She then says that she will make these tapes so the next person to test these games has a chance of stopping it.
It's a character I couldn't make out who it was, standing at the end of the hall. I thought it was just bugged out, so I made a note of it and kept playing.
The next few tapes explains that the first beta tester, Jeremy, started acting really weird, then killed himself. He was Glitch Trap's first victim. At the end of the tapes, she explains that the only way of beating this thing is to let it take over your consciousness.
There is a way to kill it. It wants to escape through someone plugged into this game. That's you now. You have to let it begin the process of leaving through you. Then use the disconnect switch that I've embedded by the main stage. Let it approach you. Let it begin to merge with you. Play the music and flip the switch. That will cause a hard restart of the game and flush the memory, effectively killing it. I hope. I don't know when it will come for you.
So that's what Vanessa did. Vanessa had therapy sessions, so she went to those as normal. Her therapist started talking about how she's messaging someone on her work computer, but she denies it. The next therapy session she goes to, she finds a new therapist. We learn that Vanessa's parents had a custody battle in court, and her dad, Bill, manipulated Vanessa into saying things about her mom that weren't true. The next therapy session talks about how the person she's been messaging has been sending her manipulative messages and hacking into her personal files. In the next session, she takes an ink blot test, which is basically look at this picture and tell me the first thing you see. In the later therapy session, we learn that she buys fake fur and other costume materials. I wonder what that's gonna end up looking like. There's another patient that's gonna end up being really important later on. Patient 46, otherwise known as Gregory. This is the kid that we play as in the next game. In his therapy sessions, we learned that he would always refuse to talk, By the way, we're pretty sure this kid has been a glitch trap victim at some point. We learn that his therapist keeps going missing and that he lied about having a bad childhood. But it was really glitch trap doing all that stuff through Gregory in case the therapist ever got too close to the truth. Gregory woke up in a tangle of wires. He crawled inside Glamrock Freddy when he malfunctioned on stage in Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. He doesn't remember why though, but he snuck in illegally so he can't go to the security guard Vanessa. He asked Glamrock Freddy for help to get out and he agrees. But other animatronics, Glamrock Chica, Roxanne Wolf, and Montgomery Gator, are acting very murderous. This is because Glitch Trap has taken over them too. When Gregory finally gets through the exit though, he's minutes late. So Gregory survives until 6 a.m, but throughout the night we also decommissioned all the animatronics except for Glamrock Freddy, of course, since at the beginning, we see he's in safety mode, which means any unnecessary systems shut down, including Glitch Trap. Gregory takes Roxy's eyes, Monty's claws, and Chica's beak, but throughout the night there's this dancing rabbit lady who tries to kill us but is not part of the animatronic band. We later find out through a vent above Phaser Blast that her name is Vanny. They put 2 and 2 together and figure out that this is actually Vanessa in disguise. Also, in one of the endings for Security Breach, there are somehow 2 Vanessas. A theory that kind of explains it is that one robot is Vanessa that is used to do what Vanessa would normally do, while Glitch Trap uses the real Vanessa to do his bidding. Anyway, at the end of the night, Glamrock, Freddy, and Gregory decide to do a boss battle with Vanny, and Freddy gets disassembled while Gregory is fighting and running from disassembled animatronics. In Vanny's room, there's this arcade called Princess Quest that Gregory decides to beat since he already beat the other 2, and when he does, everything goes quiet. He goes outside to check what happens and finds the Vanny mask on the ground. He picks up Glamrock Freddy, still working ahead, and gets to the main entrance. There he finds Vanessa, presumably the human one, finally out of Glitch Trap's grasp since Gregory beat the Princess Quest arcade game, and they both leave the Pizzaplex. After getting a distress message from her friend Gregory at a now abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex, Cassie breaks into the giant place in search of her friend. Once she's done exploring, she finds a walkie-talkie of her favorite character, Roxanne Wolf, with Gregory's voice calling out. He explains that he's stuck under Roxy Raceway and needs help getting out. A little later, Cassie runs into Mapbot, who is now Maskbot for some reason. He hands her the Vanny mask, or VANNI. VANNI, or Vanny, stands for Virtual Augmented Neural Network Integration. Basically, this mask can add or remove things from the real world that aren't real. Inside this mask is a security protocol called MXES, or Mexis. Cassie doesn't really understand what it is, but Gregory tells her that it's bad, so she believes him. She encounters Ruined Monty and Ruined Chica, and that turns off all the security protocols inside the Vanny mask. Apparently, the last security node was Roxy, who's her favorite character and showed up at her 11th birthday party, so that made her really sad and cry. But when she got down to the basement of Roxy Raceway, it wasn't really Gregory there. It was actually the Mimic. The Mimic is basically, in the books, created by some dude named Edwin Murray for his son David to mimic him. But David ends up dying in a car crash, so when the Mimic still copies him, Edward starts shredding this thing to pieces with a metal rod, and since the Mimic is AI, it learned to be murderers, and when the Fazbear technicians came to get their property back, they took the Mimic with them and they locked it in the basement. Also, I'm pretty sure Edward is a parallel for Henry and David is a parallel for Charlotte. Anyway, Roxy comes out of the shadows and fights them off, and the real Gregory starts explaining to us that we were never supposed to go to the Pizzaplex and that he's gonna help her escape. He led Cassie to the elevator, but he suddenly switched from walkie-talkie to speakerphone on top of the elevator. So this was actually the Mimic, and the Mimic drops the elevator on us and we black out. Yeah, pretty vague, but there are 2 other endings. One where the Mimic is in a weird costume and we go through some doors, and in this room with gas tanks, there's a theory that this is the sister location bunker because of the gas tanks William Afton kept in the bunker. And then the Mimic gets scooped. That's also evidence that this might be the sister location bunker because of the scooper ending, which is the canon one. The other one is where we turn a left and we get almost a holographic version of Fredbear, and we put the Vanny mask on and we see a picture of Gregory, Vanessa, and Helpy eating ice cream with balloons and the daycare theme playing in the background. Yeah, pretty confusing, but it's called the Brazil ending, and it's apparently named after a movie where this dude goes insane and starts hallucinating his own fantasy land. So Cassie is probably just so desperate to get out, and that's what that was. This lore is like so confusing, but anyway, please subscribe and have a Fazerific day.